Joe Biden is currently proposing 4 big changes that he wants to make to Social Security. We'll be going over each change and what that would mean for you. Plus, we're just 7 weeks away from the announced Social Security increase for 2024. We'll be going over a new projection, and then we'll be going over 2 other projections as well. But before we go ahead and dive into the main content of today's video, if you wouldn't mind helping me out real quickly by just giving this video a like, that just helps out with the good old YouTube algorithm, and also consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already. Okay, so upon entering office, or actually before entering office, Joe Biden laid out some different Social Security reforms that he would like to make. He said, if we get into office, if you elect me, these are 4 changes that I am going to make before I exit office in 2024, unless, of course, he is once again reelected for 4 more years. So, according to the Motley Fool, Joe Biden's proposed Social Security changes come with unintended consequences for the U.S. economy. So, the first change that he does want to make is to reinstate the payroll tax on earned income above $400,000. So, in 2023, all earned income between 1 cent and $160,200 is subject to the 12.4% payroll tax, which is the primary funding mechanism for Social Security. Earned income above $160,200 is currently exempt from the payroll tax. Under Biden's proposal, the payroll tax would be reinstated on earned income above $400,000, and a donut hole would be created between the maximum taxable earnings cap and $400,000, where earned income would be exempt. So basically, Biden wants to make it so anyone who earns above $400,000 would once again have to pay the payroll tax, so that money would be going into the Social Security Trust Fund. Now, we have some lawmakers proposing that this number is actually $250,000, like Bernie Sanders in his current Social Security bill. Anyone earning above $250,000 would once again have to pay the payroll tax for that money to go into the Social Security Trust Fund. Now, the second change that Biden wants to make, or said he would make if he came into office, is to switch the inflationary tether from CPI-W to CPI-E. So since 1975, the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers, or CPI-W, has been Social Security's measure of inflation and cost of living adjustment determinant. Unfortunately, it's been doing a poor job in costing seniors their purchasing power. Biden has proposed swapping it out for the Consumer Price Index for the elderly, CPI-E, which focuses on senior household spending and would presumably result in higher annual COLAs. Now, one thing here, even though on average the CPI-E has actually been higher over the years versus the CPI-W, there have been some years where the CPI-E is actually lower than the CPI-W, so that is one thing that we can look out for as well. Just because, things in the past worked out a certain way doesn't mean they will work out the same way in the future. So if in the future the CPI-W actually ends up being higher than the CPI-E, this change over to the CPI-E would actually be a bad thing. So that's just something to think about there. Now, the third change that Biden said he would make upon coming into office is to increase the special minimum benefits. So for lifetime low-earning workers with at least 30 years of coverage, the maximum benefit in 2023 is a mere $1,033.50 per month. That's well below the federal poverty rate for a single individual of $1,215 per month. President Biden proposes raising the special minimum benefit to 125% of the federal poverty level. So basically what Biden wants to do here, he wants to take the special minimum benefit and he wants to lift that 25% above the federal poverty line, whereas right now it's actually below the federal poverty line. Now, we've seen this actually proposed in a couple of different bills. We've seen that in John Larson's Social Security 2100 Act, and we've also seen that in Bernie Sanders' Social Security Expansion Act. So in both bills, if they were to pass, the special minimum benefit would be lifted to 25% above the federal poverty line for those receiving the special minimum benefit. And as we mentioned on this channel, if this were happen to be the case for those people currently receiving the special minimum benefit, their increase would be $485 per month. So obviously this would be very significant. Now, the fourth change that Biden said he would make upon entering office is to beef up the primary insurance amount for aged beneficiaries. So lastly, Joe Biden has suggested gradually increasing the primary insurance amount by 1% annually, beginning at age 78 and continuing through age 82. This cumulative 5% boost to the PIA for aged beneficiaries is designed to offset certain costs that can increase later in life, such as prescription drugs or medical transportation expenses. So pretty much as it says here, from the age of 78 through the age of 82, each and every year your PIA amount would increase by 1%, so you would be receiving more in benefits to sort of offset those extra expenses that you might be making during that time in your life. Now, one thing to mention here, even though you might be on board with a lot of these changes, that $485 increase, the COLA is potentially being higher, and of course, to pay for all that, taxing those higher earners, he's had, at this point, he's almost through his entire term. We had the elections coming up next year. He's had 2021 to get something of this done. He's had 2022 to get something of this done. And half of this year in 2023, he's had 2.5 years to really push for these changes to be made. And even though for anything like this to happen, it would have to pass through the House and the Senate, it would have to pass through Congress, nothing that he could do like unilaterally through an executive order, even though he's tried a lot of things through executive order, it's nothing that he could do himself. But then again, we don't really see him out there pushing for changes to Social Security. Instead, he's saying that we're going to have our hands off of Social Security, we're not going to touch it at all. And he's not pushing lawmakers to create any type of bipartisan plan. He's putting these ideas out there, but you see what he's actually doing, just like any other politician, he's making all these promises, but he's not actually following through or pushing for them to get this done. So we can pretty much see what's happening there. Now, in some other news, of course, we're just 7 weeks away from the announcement of the Social Security increase for 2024, which of course will be in the form of the COLA, the cost of living adjustment. So this is a guaranteed increase. So according to the Motley Fool, at least they can say that we're definitely not going to be getting that 8.7% increase like we did in 2023. That's because inflation is not going up the same as it was last year. Inflation is still definitely going up, but it's just not going up at the same pace as it was last year. So that's sort of good news, but it's also not going up at a slow pace that it should be, anywhere between 1% to 2%. So they say here that what's the most important date on the calendar this year for Social Security beneficiaries? Probably October 12th. That's when retirees and other Social Security beneficiaries should find out how much their benefits will go up for in 2024. There are only 7 weeks left until next year's Social Security cost of living adjustment is likely to be announced. Here's how big of a raise you can expect. So they say that as of right now, we only know the CPIW for 1 month in Q3 of 2023, which is July. If we only use this 1 month to calculate next year's COLA, you would be in store for a raise of a little under 2.3%. But what if the CPIW remains constant in August and September? The increase in Social Security benefits in 2024 will be close to 2.5%. That would make next year's COLA slightly higher than the average adjustment over the last 10 years. Arguably, the most likely trajectory for the CPIW, though, is for it to continue rising moderately if we assume that the inflation metric grows over the remaining 2 months in Q3 at the same rate it has risen over the last 3 months. Your 2024 COLA will be nearly 3%. So they basically say here that right now it looks like it's going to be anywhere between 2.5 to 3%, depending whether or not inflation continues to rise month over month or if it continues to stay the same. So we do have 2 more months. Of course, next month in September, on September 13th, we're going to know the inflation data for August. And then in October, the following month, we're going to know the inflation data for September. So we have 2 more months of data to look at. If inflation continues to trend upwards over the next couple of months, we might see a higher COLA. And of course, we have some other inflation projections out there other than this one by the Motley Fool, where they're projecting 2.5 to 3%. Of course, we have the Senior Citizens League saying 3% is most likely going to be the COLA. And then we have the Center for Retirement Research. They're projecting anywhere between 3 to 3.8%. So they're looking at a middle point right now of right around 3.4%. But that's all the news that we have for today's video. I certainly hope that you enjoyed and found value out of it. If you did, again, I would greatly appreciate if you could give this video a like. Consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already. And I will see you in the next video.